Good afternoon. Welcome to the Weekly Livestock Market Update. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us is livestock market analyst Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
So we're going to talk a little bit about markets this week. We should have a cattle on feed report to talk about, but we do not have that information due to the ongoing government shutdown. So let's get things started and talk about what happened and recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, if we start on the cattle side of the equation this week, we're going to call cash-fed cattle down nearly $2 this week. While feeder cattle were steady to four higher, we had some light runs in some parts of the country. Certainly weather, I think, had some influence with a lot of mud in some parts of the country. On the futures side, the February live cattle futures contract was down $1.20 this week, while that March feeder cattle futures closed up 75 cents this week. A lot of strength in terms of the choice box beef price this week, up $4.40 relative to last week. And we saw strength across the board in all of those components that make up the choice box beef price. On the barrel and gilt side of the equation, cash barrel and gilt prices, again, steady this week. We've seen a few weeks here since the start of the year where we've been pretty sideways in terms of barrel and gilt prices. That February lean hog futures contract closed down nearly $3 this week, while the pork cutout value also lost ground this week, down $1.35, which actually puts it $13.50 below where it was a year ago at this time. And the weakness we saw this week in that pork cutout value really came from bellies that were down over $10 relative to a week ago.
Scott, as we take a look at this and take a look at these prices, how much, I guess, really is weather come into play, especially are we seeing that come into play on the hog side of things? Because it seems like it's been one system after another through really the heart of the Midwest.
Yeah, so you, Megan, can certainly attribute some of what we're seeing to what's been happening on the weather side. You know, it's unfortunate that we aren't getting enough data due to the government shutdown that's been ongoing to really get a good handle on this. And one has to be a little bit concerned about how good we are at discovering prices in the midst of this shutdown. And we'll only know the answer to that once we can talk about the government being open again.
You know, we talk a lot about some of the things that happens when we don't see hogs moving and we see maybe a backlog in that system. Are we also running the risk of pushing those hog weights a little bit higher and adding more pork to the market?
We certainly could be seeing that unfold. And, you know, we'll, again, have to wait and see. But it's the last thing that we really want to have happening in the hog industry right now, just given what's another, large run of hogs that we get to deal with here in 2019.
Scott, let's talk a little bit. No cattle on feed report today. As we take a look at that report specifically, we do know that we did see some pre-report estimates come out. Talk to me a little bit about how those kind of came into play and what ranges they came in at.
Yeah, so thank goodness we have some analysts out there willing to go ahead and go forth with pre-report estimates. It gives us maybe a little more information about what's happening in feed yards across the country. The average estimate of placements for December came in up 2% relative to a year ago, but I noticed the range of that remains fairly wide as down 5 to up 5. It tells me we're trying to figure out exactly what's been happening in these feed yards, as we know we have some calves that likely moved to wheat pasture that may have slowed things down. We know these lots are in a situation where, with the weather that we've had, we've slowed rates of gain down on cattle tremendously. So it's going to take us, a little while longer to talk about some of those cattle being ready to be sold. Perhaps that's a positive for the cattle prices in the short run. If we continue to slow that movement of cattle forward, that might suggest a little more bearishness once we get out beyond the first 6 months of this year. On feed numbers, up 2.3% out of that pre-report estimates as well. It just reminds us that we're continuing to grow cattle supplies as well here in 2019.
I keep looking to my side, and I apologize, but the president is speaking as you and I are talking, and it looks like the president has announced a tentative deal with Congress to end the shutdown. As we talk about that and know that we have, for example, the cattle inventory report that was supposed to come out next week, How does this potentially help us when it comes to some of the issues and the backlog of reports that we've been seeing?
Yeah, well, so number one, it does remind us there's a lot of reports now that have come and gone, and getting USDA back functioning again certainly is helpful to get those reports back online. We might get some export news for a change that would help us, but most importantly, starting to look at the data we've been missing will be important. I will be surprised if we get a cattle report on time next Friday, just due to, if you look back in 2018, Megan, we would have been, USDA would have been counting inventory in the first couple of weeks of January of 2018. Given those weeks have come and gone this year, I'm hard pressed to believe that they're going to be able to release next Friday. Hopefully here in the next few days, we'll start to get information from USDA about those exact report release dates. But I also remind us USDA has a lot of other things on its plate as well now that the government might be coming open for a period of time, including Farm Bill implementation. I think that will have to be front and center.
And that'll hopefully give us a little bit more to talk about in our conversations each week as well. Scott, anything else we're looking ahead to next week?
I certainly hope we can start to talk about some reports coming back online next week, and hopefully a little more information. And it's going to be really interesting to watch how markets behave as we start to see more information flow, hopefully next week.
Because it'll be nice to start to see some of that trade and export data again on a regular basis as well for us.
That's correct.
All right, Scott, I will actually see you tomorrow morning at the Tennessee Cattlemen's meeting, and then we will talk to you next Friday at from Cattlemen's, National Cattlemen's Beef Association in New Orleans.
Very good. Safe travels.
Thanks. Have a great week. We will talk to you next Friday. To have our weekly livestock market update delivered to your email box every Saturday morning, visit our website, brownfieldagnews.com. You can click subscribe. You can also submit questions and comments there as well. And for market updates twice daily, make sure to check out John Perkins' Market Minute. Have a great day. I'm Megan Grebner for Brownfield.